We've got barbecue back here. It's I lost it, Kyle. We got barbecue back here. You're all invited. Welcome to the Sloopcast. Yada yada yada. How you doing today, Kyle?
Doing right, Jared.
For the second straight episode, Kyle, if we were real professionals, I'd throw this out and start over again. What happened to my tongue on that? I don't know. Just stumbled all over the words.
But we move forward. We move forward.
Do move forward.
And we are moving forward with the return of our rankings.
Our tier list. The Sloopcast tier list is back. And tell you what, Kyle, let's not screw around. Let's get right into it.
Yeah, usually these take a long time to go through. So,
well, it's the first. I mean, the first one takes a while to go through as we sort of set up the tier list, and then as the season goes on, then we just sort of edit it as we go. So that's why we're we had a bye week, we had an extra episode, so we thought, hey, let's devote an entire episode straight to setting up the tier list.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, do you want to? I mean, maybe we shouldn't give the kiddos their dessert right off the top, but maybe we should. Top 4, Kyle. Actually, hold on. In case anyone's new here. Here are the rules. We're only allowed to put 4 teams in the S tier. That's the playoff, right?
That is the playoff, yes.
Only 4 teams are allowed in the S tier. A tier is supposed to be like teams that are playoff worthy, who are playoff quality football teams, but just aren't quite in that top 4 yet. B tier is a team that could potentially work their way into the playoffs with enough chaos, with enough yada yada around them. They could potentially work their way into the playoffs. C tier is just everybody else. That C tier is just the grand other. It's just, that's like having a 740 area code in Ohio. You're just in the grand other of it. That's an area code based joke for anyone in the state of Ohio. And then M tier is supposed to be saved for a special type of failure. This M tier is a team that was supposed to do great things, but has fallen flat on their face. That is for like a colossal disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have really screwed up your season to end up in M tier. That's just a real failure of expectations. All right, Kyle. I tell you what, let's just go for it. Let's do it right away. I have my top 4 in line. I know who I want in my top 4.
Yep. I got mine too. How do you want to do it? Do you just want to go ahead and say your number 1?
I'm gonna do my number 1.
Mm-hmm.
I have Texas.
Ooh, dang. That's actually who I had as my number 1 as well, was Texas. I mean,
all right.
Right. So right now, through 5 weeks. You got to go off of who you played and how well you've looked. And right now, Texas has beaten Alabama. And okay,
in Tuscaloosa.
In Tuscaloosa, yes, that's definitely a big thing. And they beat Kansas, who was ranked, and you can argue if they should have been ranked or not, but whatever. Bama is a really good win, and Kansas is a good like BC tier team victory. So yeah, Texas as of right now, and of course this can obviously change going to week 6 with teams playing tougher opponents and all that.
This is not meant to be a projection. This is based off of what teams have achieved to this point. This is not a projection. This is what we've seen so far.
Yeah. So if I'm going to go off of what teams have done and how well they've looked, it's tough. It's tough for me. That number 2 slot, 2 and 3 are very, very close to me.
I basically have 2 and 3 as a tie as well.
Yeah, so I'm going to go just based off of how well their victory off of their best victory that these two teams have had and where they are ranked right now. So I'm going to give Ohio State as my number 2 because of their victory over Notre Dame on the road there, and Notre Dame has a solid B tier ish victory on the road against Duke.
I'm sorry. So Ohio State, number 2. I agree. Very close. Number 3, in my opinion. I'm going to go with Florida State.
We think way too alike, Jared. We think way too alike.
We are lockstep. We are lock and step.
So Florida State had that good victory against LSU, and soundly too, 45-24 victory. It was, and Florida State's kind of okay. They've played Southern Miss. They've barely beat Boston College, and they almost let Clemson come back and beat them. But Clemson is another good victory there. But because of how far LSU has slipped and all that, that's why I'm giving the edge to Ohio State over Florida State for this week.
I agree. I think I do have them mostly tied. I am also giving Ohio State for the edge for the reason. Now, if Notre Dame had lost to Duke this week, I think they'd probably be even more tied. Like, you know, you maybe even give Florida State a bit of a push there. But right now, I think to me, this is my lockstep 1, 2, 3.
So the next 3 here, there's 3 other teams that I think, maybe you can argue with, there are a few teams. There are a few teams. Yeah, there's like 5 teams. There's 5 teams.
I don't think it's 5. I think it's like.
So the other
I'll tell you what, Kyle.
Teams
who 5 teams. Hold on, I have an idea.
The other undefeated teams
you name those 5 teams. I'll put them all into A tier, and then we'll discuss who should be moved up into S tier. Okay.
All right. So Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, Oregon, and I guess you could put USC up there. USC is not going to be in there, but you can put USC up there as well. So, Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, Oregon.
Couldn't find Washington. There we go. Washington, and of course, our favorite Duckies.
Oh, you got the Ducky icon there.
The straight up O logo, because it's such a dark green, doesn't show up great on the chalkboard, so I had to go get an alternative.
And then USC.
Kyle, that's 6 teams, but I also don't disagree. I think all of these teams at least belong in the A tier.
And the other undefeated teams, I don't care right now. So you got these teams here. So if we're gonna break them down here, who has the best victory of all of these teams right now?
Oregon,
yes. So Oregon.
Okay. You're not going to fight me on that, Kyle. We're agreeing too much. I was really hoping for more of a fight from you on this.
No. Oregon has the best victory of these teams right now. And now let's compare now with how well has all of these teams looked.
Oregon.
So USC offensively looks dynamic, but their defense,
Your defense is hot fucking garbage.
If I go to Oregon, for the most part, it's pretty good. I mean, they had that really close call against Texas Tech in week 2 there, 38-30 victory, if you remember that game.
Right. But they've literally obliterated every other team. Colorado 42-6, and they pulled up on the gas. They could have put 100 on Colorado. Stanford 42-6 again. Hawaii 55-10. Portland State. Okay, Portland State's an FCS school, but still 81-7. Like, with the except they've 10 points or less in every game except the Texas Tech game, which for what it's worth was played in Texas. They actually went on the road to a Power 5 opponent, which is more than some of the teams currently in A tier can say.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to subtract teams in here then. So Oregon State. So if I go to Penn State here, they don't really have a really good quality victory here. Okay. They beat Iowa 31-0. Okay. That's a okay victory, but nothing really concrete here. Defense is pretty good, but they lack the really concrete victory. You look at Michigan defense.
Real quick, on Penn State, a little bit more on Penn State. They did play a Power 5 opponent. I mean, not that West Virginia's great, but they have at least gone and played a Power 5 opponent out of conference.
Yeah.
I'll also say that some of their final scores are deceivingly good. They have a tendency to sort of wear a team out and then put some points up late.
As Penn State should, with the talent they have.
I know, but I'm just saying some of the win totals look better than the reality of the football games. Okay. Most notably Northwestern, but that's not isolated to Northwestern.
All right. Michigan, if I'm moving on to Michigan here, defense really good. Points they've led up 3, 7, 6, 7, 7. Okay. Really good. And they should only let up those points based on who they've played. East Carolina, UNLV, Bowling Green, Rutgers, Nebraska. Not really the type of offenses that's going to scare you. So Michigan doing what they should. And in some of these games they struggled early on and they kind of like Penn State, they wore the teams down and the score made deceivably look worse or look better for Michigan than what it really was, especially in that first half there. So I can't put Michigan in the S tier just because their schedule is just
garbage.
Hot garbage.
Kyle, who is Michigan's best win right now?
It's
Rutgers.
It's Rutgers. Yeah.
Rutgers is their best win right now. So, I mean, if anyone's out there being like, Jared, are you really giving Penn State credit for scheduling West Virginia? Jared, are you really giving Oregon credit for scheduling Texas Tech? When we talk about the Huskies here in a second, Jared, are you really going to give them credit for scheduling Michigan State? Yes, I am. Mm-hmm. Because there are teams, Michigan among them, if you look at who they're scheduling out of conference, they're not scheduling anybody. USC hasn't played anyone of note yet, but they do have Notre Dame coming up out of conference. So that game hasn't happened yet, but they always schedule Notre Dame. That's always a huge opponent.
Yeah. So I can't put Penn State or Michigan in S tier this week. So moving on to what you were just saying, the Huskies here.
We're not ranking the teams within S tier here. Like, we're not going to get that minutia about it, but I'd put Penn State in that 4th spot before I'd put Michigan or Georgia in that 4th spot.
Correct. Well, let me get to Georgia later here. So Washington here, as Jared said, they played Michigan State, they played Boise State, Tulsa, Cal, and Arizona. Early on, they looked really good. 56-19, 43-10, 41-7. And their defense is kind of letting up of quite a few more points. They let up 32 points to Cal. And not good Cal team. No. And then we talked about in yesterday's episode here, a 7-point victory over Arizona. Yes, Arizona scored a late touchdown to make it closer, but it's still closer than what the game should have been here. So Washington kind of not doing as well as I thought they might have. But
and I know everyone's going crazy about the numbers that Penix is putting up, but as Kyle said, Boise, Tulsa, Michigan State, Colorado, Arizona. These are not great opponents. I do give them credit for scheduling Michigan State. They didn't.
Yes.
They couldn't have foreseen the collapse of Michigan State that has been this year. Give them credit
East
for
Lansing
attempting
too.
to schedule the game.
And it was at East Lansing as well. So give them some credit there. But
for sure, you at least tried to schedule a good out of conference game.
And then the last one, Georgia here, UT Martin, Ball State, South Carolina, UAB. So their out of conference schedule is UT Martin, Ball State, UAB.
Well, they do end the season with Georgia Tech, which is traditional. So I'm just
which one's worse? Which one's worse?
I know. I'm just
Georgia's
saying,
out of Georgia or Michigan's out of a conference schedule, because I really don't know.
No, Michigan's is worse. 100% Michigan's worse. At least Georgia's playing Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech
right now, Jared. Right now.
Right now. If you're just looking at right now.
Yeah, if I'm looking right now based on teams they've played and how well they've looked right now, I'd probably rank Michigan ahead of Georgia, honestly.
I would too, because of Michigan's defense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But
Georgia has played better. Like both Auburn and South Carolina. Well,
South Carolina's bad. South Carolina's bad, Jared.
Rutgers could beat South Carolina, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But Auburn is still the best between Michigan and Georgia. The best win is Auburn.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Michigan's defense, on the other hand, has looked their offense has looked flawed at times. Michigan's offense has looked very flawed at times. They have an incredible amount of talent along that offensive line, but it's not performing the way you would anticipate that talent to be performing. There's something wrong. There is something wrong in Michigan right now. My assumption is it has to do with all the drama in and around Michigan. I mean, Harbaugh was suspended for 3 games. He spent the last 2 years trying to get out of Michigan. He and the administration don't get along. That's well known at this point. His offensive coordinator was also suspended at the beginning of the year. We're not far removed from their other offensive coordinator being mysteriously fired. We still don't know what's going on with that. Something stinks in the kingdom of Ann Arbor.
Yeah. So we went on a big tangent here going over all these teams here in A, but looking at who they've played, how they've looked, I got to put Oregon as the S tier then.
Kyle, we are lockstep, my good man. We are lockstep.
All right. So the rest of those, keep an A tier. I think they're really good teams here. There's definitely some flaws here, but I think, is there anybody else you want to put in A tier? Maybe Notre Dame?
Yeah, I was about to say Notre Dame, I think belongs in A tier.
Okay. You want to put Oklahoma, who's undefeated, 5-0 here?
They have not looked great. They're not passing the eye test. Oh my goodness. They're not passing the eye test for me right now. But I think we can put them there. What about Alabama?
I'm going to get to Alabama here in a moment here, because Alabama.
Okay. We'll put Alabama on the back burner.
Okay. What about Washington State? Washington State 4-0 victories over then ranked Wisconsin and ranked Oregon State.
I'm not giving them credit for Wisconsin. I don't care if Wisconsin was then ranked.
Okay, well,
preseason ranks don't mean anything to me. Now, give them credit for scheduling the game. They get credit for scheduling the game, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Wisconsin should have been ranked.
Okay, and maybe they should be ranked right now too. They're 3-1, and there's teams who are worse than Wisconsin that are ranked too. So, I'm just saying.
I'm not going to sit here and make the case for Wisconsin.
Okay, So Washington State, no to A tier. They got a good.
No. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no. I think they beat the Oregon State. I was just arguing that, like, I'm not gonna get all excited over a win against Wisconsin. That's all.
Yeah. But then the other undefeated team here is North Carolina.
Yeah.
Their best victories: South Carolina, Appy State, Minnesota, and Pitt.
None of those teams are good. Let's say that but those are all at least, like, again, those are all Power 5 teams at least, right? Again, like, if we compare to what Georgia and Michigan are. Well, okay, not Appy, but they're South Carolina, Pitt,
and
Minnesota. They've played 3 Power 5 teams, which one of them are in conference, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So the one-loss teams, I know Notre Dame has a loss, but they stay in A tier. So the one-loss teams, Alabama and Oregon State. Alabama has a win against Ole Miss. I don't know if Ole Miss is still ranked. Are they still ranked? Yeah, they're somehow still ranked.
Well, no.
Yeah. That's right. They beat LSU. Yes.
Ole Miss should be ranked. And Ole Miss should at the very least be in our B tier.
So, we'll go back to Alabama. They have the win over Ole Miss, and then they had a dominant win right now at Mississippi State.
Mississippi State. Yeah.
I know, but they did what they were supposed to do. I'm fine putting them at the very far end of A tier.
Okay.
Kind of like Oregon State, maybe at the far end of A tier as well. Oregon State has that win over Utah. Again with without their rising quarterback.
Yes.
It's still it looks to be a good top 20 victory for Oregon State. Yeah. Again, the rest of their schedule doesn't look all that fantastic, and they only had a 3-point loss to Washington State. So you can't take too many points away from them for that loss.
Yeah, and like Alabama's loss also is not. I mean, it's literally against the team who we've declared to be number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So
and then the other one-loss team, Ole Miss here.
And by the way, in a close game.
Yeah. Ole Miss lost to Alabama 24-10, and then just this last weekend they put out the victory against LSU 55-49. I'd put them at the very, very top part of B. Yes, I agree.
All right. So who else should be in B right now?
All right, let's look. I'm just for the sake of looking at how many teams are undefeated and one loss here. I'm just looking at the AP right now. I know the AP doesn't matter, but
I agree.
So other undefeated teams, Miami is undefeated. They are 4-0, and their best victory is against Texas A&M. Okay. But all the other teams that they've beaten, Miami of Ohio, Bethune, and Temple, which they've only let up 3, 7, and 7 points. Okay. Yeah, you can stay in B tier. I can't take that away.
You're kind of making a case for A tier, actually. How would you do?
Yeah, but
we'll see. It's just the first poll. It's just the first poll.
So Utah had that victory over Florida and Baylor, and they've also beaten UCLA and did lose this last weekend to Oregon State. So I put them in B tier as well.
I think that's fair.
Their offense is not that good. Not that good right now without their quarterback.
We'll see if when they get rising back and how good they look at that point. Mm-hmm. They've only lost 1 game. They're still, in the hunt.
Duke, B tier. Beat Clemson and they beat Northwestern and lost in a last-minute drive to Notre Dame here. Yep, B tier. Now, Leonard's ankle in question here, where he's the heart and soul of that offense there. And without him, I just thankfully they have a bye week. Thankfully they have a bye week this week, but then they go play just down the road. They play NC State, then Florida State, then Louisville. So they got some pretty tough games here coming up. So it's a good week to have a bye week for Duke.
Yeah, I don't know if he's coming back from that ankle.
Yeah, we'll see.
I mean, with any luck, like he'll obviously miss the bye week, obviously. Then I'm just saying, like he has a week off for the bye week. And then I know I phrased that weirdly, but that's all I was trying to say. And then you can probably get away without him for NC State. NC State's not any good this year. Maybe you get it. We don't. All we know about his ankle injury, as Kyle and I are recording this, which we're recording this on a Sunday night. It's by the time Tuesday comes around, and by the time people actually listen to this, maybe there's more news out there. But only thing we know right now is that the injury is, quote, not season threatening. That's the information Kyle and I have right now. So we'll see.
All right. Other
you mentioned
teams
Louisville. Here. I think Louisville's a solid B tier.
Yeah, Louisville undefeated. They've beat Georgia Tech, Indiana, Boston College, NC State. Sure, I guess they play Notre Dame this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes.
Yep. Other undefeated teams: Kentucky. Kentucky soundly beat Florida. Now you can have a discussion about how good or bad Florida really is here, but okay, they have that good win there. Their other games is Ball State, East Kentucky, Akron, and Vanderbilt.
How do those scores look? Did they dominate those football games?
They only beat East Kentucky by 11. They beat Ball State by 30, 32 to Akron, and they beat Vanderbilt by, what is that? 17 points.
Okay.
So, okay, they can stay in B. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not trying to devalue A too much, but there's a lot of these B teams. If we're being super honest, there's a lot of these B teams who have similar resumes as some of our A teams. If we're being real honest here,
Missouri's also undefeated with their schedule of South Dakota, MTSU, did beat Kansas State, Memphis, and Vanderbilt. Yeah, they could stay in B. Sure.
Yeah.
They do play LSU this weekend. All right. Other teams here. Tennessee is 4-1. They did lose to Florida. Now, again, go back to the whole Florida argument here. About is Florida good? Is Florida bad?
Yeah.
And that's how you can rank Tennessee here. Their best win is South Carolina.
I'm gonna put them at the back of B.
That's fine.
How about that?
LSU. The Mario Man rule applied to LSU here. They've already lost 2 games. They've really lost 2 games already.
They lost 2 games in the month of September.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Kyle. This is supposed to be maybe the best team in the SEC West this year.
Yeah, they almost lost to Arkansas.
Almost lost.
Lose. And then they lost to Ole Miss this last weekend,
which was their second loss. Kyle?
Yep.
M tier? You're supposed to be one of the best teams and one of the best conferences and one of the best divisions in the conference. And you've already lost 2 before the clock even clicked over to October.
Sure. Let's put them to M tier. Yep.
M tier LSU. Listen, they can work their way out of M tier. Okay. I think once upon a time ago, we had a rule that once you went M tier, you don't get back out of M tier. They can work their way out of M tier. But if they lose again, they live in M tier.
And then the other team that's ranked in the AP is Fresno State.
Fresno State's a B tier team. If I've ever
5-0 team. 5-0 team. They've beaten 2 Power 5 teams already: Purdue and Arizona State. And they beat Arizona State 29-0.
Which, if we're being fair, is the same number of Power 5 teams that Georgia and Michigan have beaten at this point.
Fair enough, yeah.
So are we forgetting anybody?
That's all. That is all of the AP here. Now, if I'm going by other teams that have received votes, Maryland undefeated.
Maryland is for sure going into the B tier. Maryland should be ranked.
I agree.
Missouri can be ranked, if LSU can be ranked, why can't Maryland be ranked? If Louisville can be ranked, why not Maryland?
Yeah.
Kentucky beat Florida. Okay. Tennessee beat Florida. It's actually, hey, Kyle, should Florida be an M tier?
How many losses do they have already? 4? It's 10?
10. This is their second loss.
Okay. But do they really go in M tier? Like, how high of expectations were they at the beginning of the year? They weren't even.
No, they weren't
even ranked at the start of the season. I don't think they go in M tier yet.
Yeah, they don't deserve M tier.
All right.
If you ask them, always high. I mean, sure. I didn't,
right.
Kyle, if memory serves, when we were doing the season preview, we're going through the Pick 6 preview. Didn't Pick 6 have them at like 4th in the SEC
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Other schools receiving votes. Kansas State, they can stay in C. Whatever.
Yeah. I'm fine with that.
Texas A&M. I didn't even see who they've played. They are 4-1. They lost to Miami, beat Auburn, and beat Arkansas.
I don't care.
Yep, don't care. UCLA.
Okay.
Let's look to see who UCLA has played. They are 3-1. They lost to Utah.
Okay. Without Cam Rising.
They beat Coastal Carolina.
Okay.
They beat San Diego State.
Okay.
And they beat NC Central.
Okay. They can stay in C.
All right. I agree.
Yeah. They can stay in C.
Other teams receiving votes here: Tulane, Air Force, Wisconsin. They can stay in C. West Virginia, they can stay in C. Clemson, Jared. I think a discussion needs to have about Clemson.
Okay, I'm listening.
They were ranked 9th at the beginning of the season. They were ranked 9th.
I now see where this discussion is going.
Lost to Duke, soundly. Okay. 20 now, I mean, you can look at the stats and blah, 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 blah. Yes, they had a lot of turnovers, but they lost the final score 28-7.
Yeah.
Does not look good on like up front there. And they also have a loss to Florida State, which they did come back in and almost put out a victory there, but nope. That's their second. Not just their second loss, but their second loss in conference as well. You got a top 10 team, just like LSU.
Yeah.
who already had 2 losses before they turned the calendar over to October.
Yeah.
Yes, they go to M tier.
God, it's a bad year to be a Purple Tiger.
It is. It sure is. Let's see. Other teams receiving votes here. Kansas, James Madison? No.
Someone always has to be clever with a James Madison vote.
And Colorado got 1 vote.
Kyle? Colorado.
They can stay in C. They can stay in C.
All the hype. Is M tier a joke? M tier, or is it actually the worst teams? You weren't here at the beginning of the show. I'll explain it again. M tier is for teams who have spectacularly failed their expectations. So we're not saying that LSU and Clemson are the worst teams in college football. We're saying that they were teams with really high expectations who have already dunked their season.
Yep, and we put LSU and Clemson down there because they already have 2 losses before the month of October.
And they were both preseason top 10s.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's more about failing your expectations than it is being like the worst.
Yeah, and they can move their way out of M tier. Yeah, they definitely can with at least LSU schedule. I haven't looked at Clemson. Clemson can get their way out of M tier, but they won't get back into A or S tier though.
No, their season's over.
Yep.
Kyle, Colorado, come on. They
all
stay in C. Attention.
That's just it. It's just attention. They can stay in C.
They got all the way up to 16th.
They can stay in C. I don't care. They stay in C.
Okay, I tell you, we're gonna keep having this conversation when they keep getting obliterated.
Okay, that's fine.
Spikes is saying, what about UCF to M tier? They blew a 35-7 lead versus Baylor.
They did.
That's a good starting point. Was UCF preseason ranked? Because I don't believe they were. And was that their first loss?
It is their second loss. They've lost 2 in a row.
Who was the other loss to?
Both to Big 12 teams.
Who was the other one to?
Kansas State.
We'll leave them in C for now. I don't know where the expectations really were. Their intro into the Big 12 is not going great so far. Turns out when you actually play a schedule,
Mm-hmm.
Kyle.
Hi, Jared.
Minnesota to M tier. This was supposed to be a team that was a player in the Big Ten West.
Were they ever ranked there?
But they lost to Northwestern. This was supposed to be a player in the Big Ten West. And they have been super bad.
I just don't think they deserve M tier, though. Yes, I know the boat it's not even floating. It's just hovering in the water, just all the water in it. And it's at that point you can sit in it, but it's completely submerged. But you're at least sitting in the boat. That's where Minnesota's at.
Okay. So you're not going to let me put Minnesota in M tier at this point?
No, no, especially with what we had LSU and Clemson in M tier, and then you're going to put Minnesota there as well. No,
I mean it's about failing your expectations, and Minnesota is starting to look like one of the worst teams in the Big Ten, which they weren't supposed to be.
No, we can keep an eye on it, but for after week 5, let's not yet.
Okay. I'm not seeing.
Let me look at it a different way. Who else is undefeated that we have not talked about?
Oh, I was looking for M tier teams. I don't think there's any undefeated teams left. I think there's only 22 undefeated teams.
Air Force is undefeated, Jared.
Oh, I don't even have Air Force on the dang graphic.
They beat Robert Morris, Sam Houston, Utah State, San Jose State, and San Diego State.
Okay. I'll tell you what, Kyle. At the very least, they do deserve to be on the graphic.
Fair.
And I say since they're undefeated.
No, they don't. No.
We can throw them in B tier. They're undefeated through the month of September. Will it last? Will they get to stay in B tier? Probably not. But they're undefeated through the month of September. There's only 22. I believe I saw that somewhere. There's only 22 undefeated teams in college football right now. They're one of them. I think that deserves something.
All right, then if we're going to play that game, then we need to put James Madison and Marshall up there then.
Fine. You made your point.
At least James Madison's beat
Nomad's going to be Matt. Nomad, Virginia, not the Cavaliers, Kyle.
It's a Power 5 team.
Barely.
And Marshall has also beaten a Power 5 team in Virginia Tech.
You're making your point. You're making your points. I'm just saying, Nomad's going to be mad at you.
Marshall is playing NC State this weekend. Ooh.
Literally, you're the only person who made an excited noise at that proposition.
Man, if I didn't have anything going on, yeah, I probably still win it. I probably still win it.
Well,
no, there's someone
legitimate chance it's because if you're at that game watching college football, you aren't at home watching college football.
Yeah, there's someone who went to my high school that's the kicker for Marshall, who ended up kicking quite a few field goals in their upset over Notre Dame last year.
Now, I don't even know if I have a James Madison on my computer, which is saying something because I thought I had all of the logos on my computer. I legitimately thought I had all of them on my computer.
To be fair, it's Sunbelt. It's the Sunbelt Conference.
I have most of the Sunbelt teams on my computer, Kyle.
Oh, on the computer. Okay.
Yeah, on the computer, not in the graphic.
Okay.
On my computer.
But those are the last two undefeated teams, though. Is James Madison and Marshall.
I don't know if I have a Marshall on my computer. What the hell's wrong with me?
I don't know. You tell me, Jared.
Hold on. I just might. I do have a James Madison on my computer. Ha ha ha. Yeah, check that out. Look at me. James Madison on the computer in the graphic. And I got to have a Marshall in here somewhere too. There it is, the herd. Yeah, Sunbelt. Hashtag Funbelt. They've made it onto the graphic. So we can say that at least. You went undefeated, you made it onto the graphic. Good job, JMU, Air Force, and the herd of Marshall. All right, Kyle, how's this graphic looking to you? Are you on board with what we have on the...
I'm good, especially being, I guess you can say early. It's our early rankings here, but I don't want this to go sound bad, but it is a third of the season already. So,
hey, we don't got to talk like that. It's a third of the regular season, Kyle.
Yes.
We still have conference and then bowl games And playoffs, we got a lot of season to go. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Yep.
All right.
Right.
Yeah. So we have Texas 1, Ohio State 2, Florida State 3, Oregon 4. And that is our S tier. In A tier, in no particular order, Georgia, Michigan, Penn State, Washington, USC, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Washington State, UNC, Oregon State, and Alabama. And I'm not going to keep reading past that, except to point out that LSU and Clemson are our current M tier residents.
Them purple tigers.
Damn purple tigers. What you going to do? All right, Kyle. That's it. We did it. We've built out the graphic. We've built out the tier list, and we'll be editing this tier list as we go. Let's actually make sure to go ahead and save that before I forget.
Save that in. I got a doc. You can just go ahead and paste that in here. We can kind of compare as the season goes along. Be like, hey, this is look at week 5, and then looking at week 10 and see how teams have shuffled around. I think that'd be cool.
I will not just save the graphic. I will also export the graphic so that we have a
perfect
living. So what? This was week 5, right?
Mm-hmm. All right. While you're doing that, I got a couple of
what's in Kyle's corner, Kyle.
Couple of cool things. Couple of things here, just kind of get you excited for this week here for the Ohio State and Maryland game. Ohio State opened up as a 21-point favorite over Maryland.
Oh, everyone in the Discord server was asking me as Maryland was absolutely demolishing Indiana. Hey, should we be afraid? Should we be afraid of Maryland? I'm like, no.
But then the line fell almost immediately, and it's now a 19.5 point.
Suckers. Take Ohio State, y'all.
And the other really, really cool stat here that 11 Warriors posted here, and I want to give a shout out to that because this is a great stat here. Ohio State will face 5 straight undefeated opponents to start the season for the first time since 1940. Now,
if you go back to last season.
I mean, you can complain about, it's Youngstown State and Indiana and West Kentucky. Okay, but how often does that really happen that every team that you play has not lost, though? Especially going into week 6 here. And
hey, man. Went into South Bend and got the W.
Yes.
Literally the second, I would say the second best win in college football right now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, technically speaking, you could call it the first best win, considering that Notre Dame is currently, according to the AP, for what that's worth, and it's not really worth much, but it's at least taking my bias out of it. If you look at the AP, the top ranked 1-loss team right now is Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
Who I still think is a high playoff potential team.
Yes.
Ohio State could play Notre Dame again, is my point.
Yeah. No, that is it. That is it. And then it looks like the Ohio State game is going to be a noon kickoff on Fox. So we get to, for the first time this year.
Is that first Gus Johnson?
I think so for the Buckeyes.
It's not the first Gus Johnson, is it?
I am going to double check here while you...
Didn't we have Gus Johnson for Indiana? I think we had Gus Johnson for Indiana. Right?
That was CBS. Remember, that was CBS.
No, we didn't have Gus. If we not have Gus, you know why? This is why I wanted to put Colorado in M tier. He's been doing the fucking Colorado games.
Western Kentucky was on Fox, but that was a 4:00 kickoff. And then the Youngstown State was on BTN. So yes, this is the first Gus Johnson special.
That's no wonder This is the actual reason why I hate Colorado. Gus Johnson's been doing Colorado games. All right, Kyle. That's it. That's the end of the show. Oh, nope. Go ahead.
One other thing here, and I know that late last week we had a recruiting episode here, and since then there was a decommit for Ohio State. Mark Nave decommits from Ohio State.
This wasn't expected, but I also am going to say that it's not bad news for Ohio State. And I think we'll leave it at that.
Yep, there's a couple of high-profile targets that Ohio State's looking at.
Yeah, and even if they don't go and get those high-profile targets, the recruiting math has changed in college football. If you're Ohio State, the recruiting math has changed. If you don't feel like a guy is going to be, for one reason or another, a good fit, there used to be the attitude of, well, you still need a body. You still need a guy. You still need to go get, still get some bodies and see if you can. But in the age of the transfer portal, you don't now. Now you can just say, well, we're only going to get 4 offensive linemen through recruiting, which will leave a spot open to maybe go get another guy in the portal. So the recruiting math in many ways has changed because of the transfer portal. So I'll say if you are concerned about the decommitment, don't be. And I think we'll leave it at that.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That is all I got.
All right. Tonight's ending music is brought to you by a Columbus-based band called Slim Fit. You can, if you're listening to the podcast, just keep listening to the podcast. That song will start playing here soon. If you're watching on YouTube, you can click the link down in the show notes and listen to the song there. We can't really play music on YouTube, so that's why we don't. And if you want to hear if you want to hear this song or any of the other songs we've played, we actually maintain a playlist on YouTube. So just go to our YouTube channel, youtube.thesloopcast.com, look at our playlist, and in the playlist, you'll find Ohio Music Only. I think that's the name of it. But it'll be obvious. It'll be obvious which playlist it is. You can go there and you can find all of the music that we've played on the show in the past couple years, and probably even more. So you can find all that music there, and you can just stick it on shuffle and listen. And maybe discover some local bands that you like. Local, of course, assuming if you live in Ohio. You can go find someone else's playlist if you don't live in Ohio. I can only maintain the one. So, with all that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support local podcasters. Once again, this is Slim Fit.